So, Liz, how long have you been a breast cancer survivor?
So I was diagnosed in October of 2005, and I finished treatment 1 year after that. So I am coming up on 10 years post-treatment and 11 years post-diagnosis.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. It's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. And I'm hearing from a lot of survivors that for them it was 1 year, about that same time period from when they were diagnosed to when they finished their treatment and they were considered cancer-free. And so leading up to that point, did you have any idea, were there any signs, or were you just kind of going about your life like everybody listening on the radio, you know, doing your thing, just expecting that the same calendar things were going to pop up, the same everything, your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, I was just going about my life. I'm a physician and I'm an anesthesiologist, and I take care of cancer patients every single day. And never in a million years did I think that I would someday be diagnosed with cancer. I found a small lump. I had had a normal mammogram, went back in to have the mammogram rechecked. They told me it was a cyst, not to worry about it. I talked to a friend of mine who's a surgeon. I said, I'm worried about this. They said, just get it out. I got it out, and I could not believe I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm healthy, I exercise, I have no family history, and here I am, a physician, being diagnosed with cancer, something I see every day and never could imagine myself being faced with.
So was that your aha moment?
I think so. I think it's the moment where you realize that you're vulnerable, that you're not immortal. And we go along every day, and maybe we snow ski like crazy, or we rush around in our vehicles, and we never think for a second that we're going to be the ones that get sick or get hurt. And we think we're invincible. And at that moment in time, you realize that your body's failed you, and you are not invincible. You're mortal. And that's a pretty big earth-shaking experience, I think.
Yeah. What was the experience like for your family?
I actually think it was harder for my family than it was for me, because once I got diagnosed and once I got a plan, I felt better. It was the unknown that was so difficult. It was not knowing what my treatment protocol was going to be, but once I got that in place, I just marked it off the calendar, and I did the treatments and I did my surgeries. It was my family that I think was so worried about how I was doing. I found myself reassuring them a lot, especially my parents. It doesn't matter how old you are, you're still their daughter, and they're terribly worried. So I think my kids did really well, because I did my best to keep things very normal. I just kept telling them I was going to be all right. But I think my family had a harder time than I did, because I just kind of took it as a mission that I just needed to get through this.
Right. You had a plan, you had a vision, and
I did.
You could see it clearly.
I did. I marked off, okay, now I'm halfway through, now I'm 3/4 of the way through. Now I have 1 month left, and I'm on my last treatment. So I just marked it off like on my calendar of something I had to do.
So what was your hardest part?
I think my hardest part was obviously the physical part of it, the chemotherapy, the surgeries. That was tough. The hardest part was the mental part of all of this. One day you don't have cancer and you feel fine. The next day you get this phone call, and all of a sudden you feel nauseous and anxious and you feel sick. And the only thing that's really changed is your perception of what's going on in your health. So I think the physical part of getting through that was tough, but it was just something that I marched through, and I did. And I really thought the last day I finished my chemotherapy, I walked out and I thought, yahoo, I'm done. And then I got in my car and thought, oh no, I'm done. Because now you're not doing anything to prevent it from coming back. And now you get a headache and you think it's in your head, and your hip hurts and you think it's in your bones. So it's a whole new normal that you really have to adjust your thinking to. And there's a whole shift now about healthy survivorship, because we have all these people surrounding us, taking care of us, and work knows we're out getting treatment, and our families know. And then you're done, and everybody expects you to be back on your game. And maybe you have memory problems. Maybe you can't feel your feet. Maybe you're leaving with a colostomy from colon cancer. I mean, your world has changed, and the rest of the world sees you as, oh good, you're done, you're back to normal. So I think survivorship is a huge part of the cancer treatment process that we really need to address, because when people are done, we just kind of drop them off and say, see you in 6 months for your blood work or your scan. And that's a long 6 months till you get to the next one and find out you're okay.
Wow, that's true. Obviously this changed your path a little bit, maybe not completely, but is there one thing that changed for you in your life path since the cancer that you would say was positive?
I think there were a couple of things. First of all, my husband and I are both physicians, and we were both just working like crazy and running the soccer carpool and doing the things parents do, and you really think you have all the time in the world to travel to that place you want to go to, or just some of the goals, the things on your bucket list, and it made us really take a step back. So when I came back after a year of treatment, I went back to work 3 days a week part-time, and my husband went to 4 days a week, and we set Fridays aside, so we always had a day together or a long weekend that we could do something. The other thing it did is made me really look at this whole survivorship thing and realize as a physician, people just get dropped off the scene when they're done with treatment. And so I really became involved in a nonprofit called the Tucson Cancer Conquerors. And we're all about healthy survivorship. It's about being proactive. It's about taking charge of your health. You're not a victim. Cancer messed with the wrong women. We don't have time for this. And so it's really been therapeutic for me to help other people get through that process. It kind of turns a bad situation into something that's good, and it makes me feel like I can pay it forward.
So it's kind of a support group for each other, but it's not just let's sit down and talk. There's a physical aspect to it as well.
Right, there is. Being a physician, I realized how important for our immune system exercise and nutrition are. And so the program is based a lot on exercise. In fact, I went and got my personal training certification, so I teach the classes with the help of a couple of other girls in the organization. It's all volunteer, nonprofit. It's cancer survivors and their friends and buddies. So some days you just don't feel like exercising. We say, have your mom bring you, have your daughter bring you, bring a friend, and come, because if you do it together, there's accountability and it's more fun. So the exercise part's important. The social part of it's important. We're still normal people that like to go to happy hour, and we just don't want to talk about our cancer. We don't want to sit around with tissue boxes and cry about our situation. We want to move forward in a way that's really healthy. We have a big organic garden. We work at the executive chef at Ventana Canyon to cook what's in our garden because nutrition is so important. So big focus on socialization, peer support, nutrition, and exercise.
Wow. I didn't realize all that, so that's pretty cool. So I've been asking survivors, how do you support, or why do you support the American Cancer Society? I mean, obviously you were an honorary survivor, and you spoke a few years ago, and what drives you to do that?
When I was diagnosed with a type of really aggressive form of breast cancer. It's called HER2/neu. It multiplies really fast. It has the likelihood of spreading and metastasizing much more quickly. And I found out my tumor type, and I was so upset. And my oncologist said to me, you know what? Yesterday this would have been bad, but today there's a new drug that just got approved for adjunctive therapy, which means you don't have to have it spread all over your body to try it. So we've been using this drug called Herceptin in people who have metastatic disease, and we've had great results. In fact, such good results that they're using it preventatively in people with the earlier stage cancer, because we know statistically it's likely to come back. Well, I found out that one of the supporters of research of Herceptin was American Cancer Society. Also tamoxifen, which is an estrogen blocker, which so many of our women are on.
My mom was on that.
Yes, American Cancer Society helped fund that research. So for me, there's so many great organizations that help cancer survivors, but the bottom line is we're still poisoning people with chemo, using radiation, using surgery. We need a cure. And so my focus was on research and finding a cure.
I love that. And I love your energy, and you're very inspiring. And I want to come and check out your Cancer Conquerors.
I told you are invited anytime, because like I said, it can be buddies. You can just come to support the survivors that are there. And after we work out every Saturday morning, we do have coffee and breakfast at the park. So you can always, that's your reward, is you're working so that you can have breakfast afterwards.
I like that, and I like the socialization part, so I'm there.
Yeah.
I will be there. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. You're an inspiration.
Oh, thank you, and I'm so glad to be here.